Hi, you guys. How are you doing? This is a rough week. It's a very rough week. It's been a rough month. It's been a rough year. It's rough. I've been saying all along, one step at a time, you guys. This is the year where we do not necessarily build things. Things are going to try to be assembled and they'll be broken back down. And then we'll get ideas to go forward again, and then we're going to have to revisit them. The year of 2020 is very exhausting. And I'm sorry to bear that news on an already very difficult couple of days this week. I haven't even been watching the news, and I'm feeling all of this sinking in. Tonight was the State of the Union address. I didn't watch that. There's a big fiasco in Iowa with the caucuses. And the president just seems like he's consolidating power, more and more power, and is going to skate scot-free. And so I've been thinking about, looking for more answers. I'm like, what's going on? Because there's all these massive major things that are happening at once. Well, the Saturn Pluto conjunction is one of them that is drilling down really hard right now. Saturn Pluto has everything to do with structure and power. Those things are being reconfigured, and they're coming together in the sign of Capricorn, which has to do with authority, establishment, and achievements and structures. The things that are no longer working they'll break apart. They will break away. And it is very sad to see what's happening in Iowa. With the caucuses, they have not been serving this country well for a while now. And they finally broke, which I guess the silver lining is that it broke. We're never doing this again. But the gut punch is that it broke, and so publicly and humiliatingly and unpreparedly. It is absolutely a problem at the state level. And people are saying they don't want to blame an app, but blame the user. I call foul on that. And there's some sort of insinuation that it has to do with an older generation who isn't able to use apps. Excuse me. No, they use apps just fine. They all have smartphones. I think that is quite biased to say that against an older generation not being able to use apps. The problem is the app. The problem is that it wasn't tested, and that negotiations were made with this company at the very last minute last fall. And so I'm thinking about that app. I'm thinking about what happened in Iowa. And so today I pulled out the United States natal chart, and I'm like, oh, well, there you go. That's what's happened. And it's like, oh, looking at the transits. Oh, that's why he's consolidating power. I see. Oh, it really feels like we're crumbling at our foundation, and we're not really sure where we're going as a nation. Oh, I see. That makes sense. Yes, this is going to be a very long year, you guys, but I can give you some answers as to what's going on. Where shall we start? Let's start with what happened in Iowa, since we're talking about that. Let's look at the U.S. natal chart. And so this is the Sibley Horoscope. We're not totally sure when the Declaration of Independence was signed, but over time, this has been the chart that has stood stood all the tests when you look at it and try to reconcile what happens in real time and how that might affect the chart. But my question right now has to do with what happened in Iowa and how is that reflected in the USA chart. Well, we look at the ascendant, the sign on the eastern horizon. We have 12 degrees Sagittarius. Sagittarius is, it's an optimistic sign. It's a sign about hope. It has Mars in it right now in its first house, so it's really energizing the entire system. It's really fueling the entire chart. And this entire chart is experiencing some major changes and weaknesses that are kind of buckling under all the energy that's being fueled into this chart right now, just because Mars is in the first house of identity, new life, spring. Mars right now is conjunct the president's natal moon, so he's feeling extraordinarily aggressive, full of himself. He is most dangerous under these aspects. So it's benefiting him really well. The thing that's not benefiting him, nor is benefiting the nation before he was ever born, and what Saturn Pluto is hitting it right now, I will show you. Right now, transit Saturn Pluto is in Capricorn. It's at 23 degrees Capricorn, 33 minutes. So it's right about here in the second house. And Saturn is close to it. It is at 25 degrees. Oh my goodness, 25 degrees Capricorn, 42. So actually, holy crap. The natal Pluto for USA is 27 degrees Capricorn. Transit Saturn right now is 25 degrees Capricorn. Transit Pluto is 23 degrees Capricorn. Do you see that? Saturn, we've got a lot of incredibly strong midpoints happening right now. We have transit Saturn right here. The thing that gives us structure, the thing that gives government structure, the thing that gives establishment structure and authority. It is exactly at the midpoint of transit Pluto, life, death, transformation, destruction, and its natal Pluto, life, death, transformation, destruction. The thing that gives our country structure, boundaries, gives us form, gives us our history that we've grown up and created an incredible nation. That structure, think of a skeletal system. Think about the flexibility that our joints and our knees, our wrists, everything give to our structures. Our structures are caught on either side by Pluto. Pluto, the planet, the god of the underworld, life, death, transformation, destruction. When you are looking at weather and you see extraordinary destruction in the storm's path, that's the power of Pluto. So the thing that is giving we rely on our structures, we rely on our agencies, we rely on our institutions, we rely on the structures of our families, we rely on the structures of our Constitution, we rely on the structures of our law enforcement and our laws and how things are organized and how they're orderly and how people respect the law to give us structure and continuity. Those structures are being tested under incredible powers, like volcanic power, tectonic plate shaking, jarring powers. And it's like being put in a vice. Our country is being put in a pressure cooker and a vice right now. That's why it's so hard for our Constitution to stand up right now. That is why it's so hard for our institutions to be what they've always been. I mean, it's incredible to think that there's this sense of destruction to the core of our country seemingly overnight. Well, yeah, seemingly overnight, because it was just on the 12th of January that these two powerhouses, Saturn and Pluto, met at 22 degrees Saturn Pluto. And then Saturn moved on. Saturn has moved 3 degrees. It's now at 25 degrees Capricorn. It is 2 degrees away from our natal Pluto. And hopefully when Saturn rolls over our natal Pluto, it will add some more stability. And this shocking chaos will settle down. But we are going to be riding this for a little while here, you guys. Saturn is at 25 degrees until February 9th. It's at 26 degrees until February 18th. Holy hell, February 17th, 18th. Nuts. Just freaking nuts. Saturn will go to 27 degrees come February 19th. And it'll go to Saturn, it'll go to Capricorn 28 degrees on leap year, the 29th. Oh my God, we have to have an extra day of February this year. So, come February 29th, I think we're going to maybe catch our breath. Until then, it's really hard. At least we will, the 27th, on the 19th, Saturn will start rolling over Pluto and stabilizing some of this destruction and kind of temper that. But then, as Saturn rolls over, guess what? Our natal Pluto life-death transformation now will be smack dab between transit Pluto and transit Saturn. We're at our Pluto return. If it feels like do or die for our democracy and our country, that's because it kind of is. They've often said that democracies don't survive more than 250 and 300 years. And I've wondered if that's because of the Pluto return, because that's about how long it takes for Pluto to return back to where its original position at the time that the nation was founded. These are really difficult times, yes. So that was one thing I wasn't expecting to see. If you can feel how intense it is for us as citizens dealing with this sandwiched, this totally destructive power, and just feeling like things are kind of crumbling at the core. Donald Trump, his Venus, income gains, is at 25 degrees Cancer. It is opposite Saturn right now, and his money is getting the squeeze in opposition that I just described, because it is opposite Saturn, and it is the midpoint between transit Pluto and the natal Pluto. like over here. So his Venus is over here. This is a real tug of war. He is absolutely feeling this when it comes to his gains and his money and his income. And with him being so full of himself with the Mars conjunct his moon, no wonder he is so malicious and terrifying, I think, to the Republican Party. Donald also has, at 23 degrees opposite transit Pluto, is his Saturn. So we as a nation are feeling this. We know he's all out for himself, but trust me, he is feeling the crumbling within himself as well. He is feeling this very deeply and very personally. In fact, you know how I tell you guys, don't give Donald the power of how you might feel or how fearful you are. Don't give him that power. You have to separate those things. I think Donald feels that way about us, the electorate, but he hasn't figured out how to separate us from those feelings except for to maim and slash and burn everything down in his wake. He is caught. He is caught very tightly, and between this 23 degrees and 25 degrees is what? 24. That takes us back to the can opener eclipse I've talked about from July 16th. Because the sun and the moon were at 24 degrees, Cancer, Capricorn, and they left an indelible mark, a fault line, if you will, of what's energized here. This is extraordinarily fated. I looked forward to this 24-degree mark because I was like, all this time, nobody's ever been able to get to Donald's money because Saturn at 23 degrees has always protected it, because this is how the Earth spins, and so this is how it seemed the constellations are going. And so throughout Donald's life, the Saturn, the blockade, always protected his money behind it. And then he had Pluto behind him, which made his money and influence very powerful. So all of his life, he's had this. No one's ever been able to crack open that door. Well, we had that eclipse at 24 degrees, Cancer, Capricorn, and I called it the can opener because it would hold this door open for us to look in and examine. And it has. Now, with how difficult things are for us, he's got that can opener wide open. He has Pluto drilling down on his money. Destruction, intensity, transforming his money. Saturn. He's got a Saturn opposite now, which is really putting an obstacle and limitation to his money and his power. It's separating his money from his power. Pluto is opposite his Saturn, and it is drilling down on his extreme defenses and protections of his money and his power. I said in another reading, it felt like his aura was kind of thinning and disappearing. He is definitely feeling the I don't want to say deadly, I don't want to say deathly, I just very consequential and draining, and life sucking out of him. There's nothing he can do. There's nothing he can do to stop it. He can't transform. There's nothing he can do to stop this thing that has him at his core and his biggest love, which is money. And it's crumbling. It's like life is being sucked out of it. I never realized that until now, and he must be terrified. And you know what? I was feeling pretty bad when I turned on the camera, but right now thinking about him, like, man, it's way worse for him, because no matter if he's acquitted or what happens, this isn't going away, you guys. So having thought of that in this perspective, I'm thinking doom and gloom, how hard 2020 is. It is not as hard for us as it is for him personally. And in a way, I don't know how he gets through this year. I always said this can opener eclipse was the eclipses in a year ago was the beginning of the end for him, because they set the stage for him. And then the can opener broke it wide open, and then the Saturn-Pluto conjunction is there to blockade and transform and destroy, basically. Because had he behaved in a more responsible fashion and accountability, he could probably get through this, but that's not who he is. So having said all that, let's talk about some more 23, 24, 25 degrees and why it matters so much to our nation. And we're going to talk about why it matters so much with Iowa. In our natal chart, our Mercury, the nation's Mercury, is at 24 degrees Cancer, and it's retrograde. So when we had this can opener eclipse, Saturn, the sun, moon at 24 degrees Cancer, a year ago I said, or last summer I was like, we need these eclipses because USA is going to get her mojo back. She's going to have her energy back because a year ago those eclipses were so draining on her. I mean, I couldn't believe we were just crawling to get to the summer. We got our energy back, and then Speaker Pelosi come this fall. I'm so glad she got as much done as she did to get him impeached before the Saturn-Pluto conjunction. I'm telling you, she's got the best astrologer. I don't know who it is. I wish I knew. And that eclipse sat right over USA's natal Mercury. Mercury has everything to do with thinking, reasoning, communicating, documents, rules, publications, electronics, social media, contracts, negotiations. She got all that done by then. Thank God. Well, we have the Saturn-Pluto. Remember how I said it feels with the Saturn being between the two Plutos? The transit Pluto, the one in real time right now, and the natal Pluto, the one from 1776, being ground down. That grinding down sense, Saturn-Pluto, our natal Mercury is exactly opposite. Pluto is at 23 degrees. It is going to go 24 degrees and be exactly opposite our natal Mercury 24 degrees. At the end of the month, or no, on February 20th. Okay, this window of February 17, 18 through the 20th, really, oh my God, you guys, take care of yourselves. Holy crap. I am betting down the hand. I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to limit the things I do and choose what I'm going to do. I am not going in any crazy traffic. I'm not going in big crowded places. I am just going to take it easy. Mercury, electronics, apps, tabulations. This is what happened in Iowa. Pluto is the god of the underworld. It makes its presence known in a big, huge way. When it is aspecting a planet, especially above the horizon. When it has to do with a nation, you're going to see it out loud and in public. What do we have here? We have Mercury, 24 degrees in the 8th house of life, death, transformation. I'm so glad it's in this 8th house because it gives it a lot of resilience. Now that I think of it, it gives it some natural power to regenerate itself. When I think about that Iowa Caucuses, think about people assembling, people voting, people using apps, people, thank God, backup paper, pencil, but having to add up numbers and having to communicate them elsewhere, then having to have those tabulated, then having to have them communicated. And then there was an epic, humongous, giant fail. Stunning, shocking fail. That's the Saturn-Pluto with Mercury at the midpoint opposite this. And Pluto is going to come and roll right over the 24 degree mark, come towards the rest of this month. We're not done here. We are not done. We're just getting started on this Iowa thing. I think it's a much bigger scandal than anyone can imagine. I'm going to just tell you what my hypothesis right now, what I think is going on, and why the Democrats can't win, and why they're having so many struggles with elections over and over and over. Because remember that Hillary Clinton had her data hacked, and so did Kamala Harris. I think not the Democrats. They hired the vendor, NGP Van, hosts the databases, web hosting. Shadow Inc. did the app. They're both based Silicon Valley. I think the Democrats hired them. I think the Trump campaign got to that company. And I think the Trump campaign has all of our information. Because Hillary's proprietary data information went to Russia. We know that from the Mueller report. And the Manafort and Kamala Harris's data got stolen. Here comes South Carolina. So there's been a great big explosive thing happening to our elections. And it blew up pretty big. And that was the combustion point of the Saturn Pluto opposite our natal Mercury that has everything to do with communications, voting, people gathering, caucusing, discussing. That's why that blew up. And Pluto is going to stay opposite this 24-degree mark for quite a while. It's going to stay there through March, all of March. It's going to be at 24 degrees. All of April, it's going to be at 24 degrees. Actually, on April 25th, it'll go 25 degrees Capricorn. But then guess what? It retrogrades backwards into 24 degrees, so it is going to roll back over everything it did. And I am telling you, these are crazy, crazy hard times. It's like Pluto's going to put the car in reverse and just going to roll back slowly. Back over our Mercury. Back over Donald's can opener. So we'll probably catch our breath then. Back over the opposite Donald, Saturn, and Venus. And then Pluto will put it in drive. When? Oh my God, it is at 24 degrees until July 6th. So for the U.S. birthday this year, it is going to be Pluto opposite Mercury. We're going to be dealing with these problems into 2021 because there will be eclipses. Then Pluto will be 23 degrees. Oh my God. And then for the rest of the year, it goes back over the 22-degree mark of Saturn-Pluto conjunction. So that stuff is going to be activated again. I told you this is going to be a difficult year. But right now, this is the first round of Pluto going forward opposite our Mercury. When it goes backwards, it's going to be uncomfortable, but we're going to be like, oh, we've been here before, let's clean up. And the rest of the year, we're just going to be dealing with the fallout of this, okay? And the elections, I just don't even know how Donald survives this. I mean, physically, this is so hard on the body. I think that's all I'm going to talk about. I'm almost to an hour. I've been wanting to talk. There's something else I've been wanting to talk to you guys so much about that is so exciting, and why it's been giving Speaker Pelosi so much power and women so much power. But that's going to have to wait for another day. Oh, did you know that the U.S. natal Mars is 21 degrees Gemini? Donald Trump's sun is 21 degrees Gemini. So, and that's why it makes it that much easier for him to be hostile to we the people. And take our money. And take our luck. And take over our government. He's got planets over here too, and he's just like, mine. Mine. And so, I wish I had better news, but I wanted to share with you guys what I finally realized tonight. I'm just kind of speechless. One day at a time, one foot in front of the other. The dust will settle. But that's about all I can say right now, because I feel like everything has just been tossed in the air lately, and we're still waiting for gravity to pull everything down. We're getting close to landing, though. Okay? So thanks, you guys. Thank you so much. Have a good day. You are the only thing that matters. Don't get pulled into anything else. And you're the only one that can take care of you. Okay, my fine fellow American? We're gonna keep going. Keep going. I have a quote for you. Here's some quotes. Barack Obama. The best way to not feel hopeless is to get up and do something. Don't ever let anyone tell you that your efforts don't matter or that your voice doesn't count. Don't ever believe that you can't make a difference. You have, says Barack Obama. We were all meant to be here. We're a work in progress in a space we've never known before, and it is scary, but this is part of the work. We've gotten this far, you guys. We have. Okay, good night.